And I'll start. Chris, we don't have to, there's a microphone for each of us, right? Yep.
Well, it's coming through here, so if it's gonna be on, make sure that you're muting.
Yeah. Tuesday, September 28th, 2021, and it is 4:01, and I am Susie Zimmet, President of the Aspen School Board, and we're calling our meeting to order. Can we have a roll call? Who should do a roll call? So we have a secretary starting next week.
Here.
Nickel,
Here.
Zinnett,
Here.
Frisch,
Here.
Romero, here.
Can you do that in alphabetical order and so?
So here, I have a somber thing to say. I would like to call for a moment of silence in memory of our 8th grade student, Ray's Simony, and his family, and thank everyone who's been supporting the Aspen Middle School during this incredibly difficult time and Ray's family. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Can I just ask one quick question of protocol before we go? Do we have somebody taking minutes?
Someone that's gonna record this, we will have minutes transcribed.
We'll have them transcribed. Okay,
Next week, yeah.
great. Just wanted to make sure we didn't need to.
Yes.
Are you recording this, Chris?
Yes.
Okay.
Those were-
Yep.
So we have a motion to adopt the agenda.
Just say all those in favor, so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
There you go.
And then I believe, has anybody signed up for public comments? Is any, Susan, are you on board?
I'm on the. Is that spreadsheet available to the general public that way?
Up until 3 p.m.
Okay, then I didn't see anybody that's.
Okay.
I don't think there's anyone signed up.
And Susan's on the,
The spreadsheet doesn't have anything.
okay. 5.1 IB team update.
So actually, the agenda changed a little bit this afternoon. 5.1 changed and.
It would be,
So 5.1
It's board member.
is board member updates, and then the IB update is embedded in the superintendent's. Apologies for that.
okay. Just going forward, if we could, maybe send a text when there's a change, because I don't, I'm not on that, I'm on that.
Uh-huh.
So just going
Okay,
forward.
going forward, we hope to have a board site.
That would be great.
It's marking that we're really strong.
But I have been wanting to say that for some time, because there have been some sort of last minute updates that I don't, if I'm going on by paper, I've already printed it 2 hours ago, and then there's an update.
Sure,
So just
absolutely.
a notification. So board updates. Susan wrote quite a bit, and does anybody have anything more to say here? And did you want to say anything?
Just mention that we've received an updated proposal from Liz Wilson about the climate culture check-in, and she reduced the scope a bit, and so we have that to look at, and that's really it. The rest is just written notes.
Okay.
Susie,
Yes.
do you think it's something we should talk about in the discussion items here this evening, so to give her feedback?
Well, we can. We didn't put it on the agenda, so we can't vote on it or anything like that, but I
I think
think
about it and then the agenda kind of.
Or we can talk about it for a few minutes right now. I mean, as part of Susan's.
Well, there's two proposals, right?
Yeah.
Two pathways.
Yeah, she gave us some
One
options.
was more leadership.
But there's an HYA proposal as well.
Oh,
Right, there's an HYA.
That's right.
So there's competing proposals. I think we need to, if we're gonna talk about those, I think we should
Have a whole,
have a whole thing on it, but can we, is there any reason we can't add that?
no, I mean, we can add it. If,
I make a motion to amend the agenda, if I so may, Mr. President, on the add item 6.3, discussion of planning culture updates, proposals for the district.
I'll second it.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Super, so you got 6.3.
Good.
all right, so now superintendent update.
Great.
Got it on.
Whatever you want. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, Chris, why don't you go ahead and drive? Okay. Slide share. So just wanted to grab a quick minute to recognize the incredible team over at Aspen Middle School. As President Sept referenced earlier, there was a tragedy this weekend. Principal Amy Kay and Assistant Principal Julie Ramey and the entire staff have really stepped up incredibly, pulling together, supporting each other, supporting the students. We've had a lot of community support come into the school, and it's been huge and super helpful. Mind Springs, the Aspen Hope Center, Orange Fork School District, as well as numerous private counselors, therapists that offer their services. A lot of outpouring from the families. Been incredible. Of course, we want to keep the family and Brady Sweeney in our thoughts and prayers in the weeks ahead. It's often a few days after such a tragedy that it really hits home. And a lot of great leadership and teamwork over to AMS. So just wanted to recognize a lot of people going. There was a question
Can I
about.
just ask one question, Dave? I know it was iterated in the email to parents, but could you maybe state a couple of places they might be able to go for help if their students in particular are looking for some support for this?
Sure, probably the easiest place for students to get help and support is Safe to Tell. That's been around for a couple of years, and they have 24/7 respondents. They will in turn alert the school district, and we can get help and support for the students if they are feeling comfortable reaching out to either their counselors or the principals. So we will have additional counselors on hand for the rest of this week moving forward. But Safe to Tell is the first and easiest place to get information. And then there's a number of communications that have gone home to families if they have any questions or concerns there. It's actually really important for parents to keep an eye out on your kids. If you see a change in behavior, you can reach out to either the two principals or the counselors at Aspen Middle School, or our co-directors, Terry Valentino and Lauren Sheets of the Pupil Services Department. They're all on standby and have all been designated in communications home. But for students, especially, it's Safe to Tell. It's the easiest way to either reach out if you're concerned about a friend or if you have your own concerns. So that's the best way to go right there. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
There was a request from the board for an update on the boost camp. They did serve 70 students over the summer, and they're still in the process of compiling all their data. But we were very pleased that we're able to get 70 kids in there. We had hoped for closer to 100, 120, but we were able to serve 70 children. It's a terrific opportunity. We're hoping to run it again next year. But we will be presenting a full update when we get our report from Access After School. Breakdown of students, growth, survey results, satisfaction.
Can you include costs in there, which might not come from them?
Oh, I can absolutely.
Yeah, just so we have sort of the whole picture of
Yeah.
what the program looks
I
like.
do want to point out that was paid with the ESSER recovery money,
Right.
and that was definitely what it was intended for. So we were very pleased to get that kind of financial support. But we can include that as well.
Just for next year, we're looking to continue it. I'm pretty sure we're not gonna get the same amount of money from.
I'm pretty sure. But we'll see what we do. Well, I think that's an infrastructure upgrade, so awesome.
And those 70, those self-selected themselves, they were their recommendations.
They were partly self-selection, partly identified through Aspen Family Connections, and partly tapped on the shoulder by counselors and teachers within the schools. So,
That's great.
and we did- summer camp has never gone real well in Aspen, apparently. So not that I can speak to it, but we are pleased that, you know, it was an incredibly cost affordable opportunity that we provided with an academic boost as well as a lot of healthy outdoor activities and weekends. So
That's great.
great. The IB update was also requested. Turn over to Mr. Mulberry.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here to talk about this. I'm very excited just to give you kind of a brief background on some of the work that happened this summer. Number one, we hired the coordinators. And I just want to remind the board who our coordinators are at each building. We hired Deirdre Bennett, who is the PYP, the Primary Years Program Coordinator at the elementary school. She's serving grades all the way from pre-K through 5, which means she has the overlap with the middle school. Our NYP, the Middle Years Program, is being our coordinator that was hired was Sarah After, who is formerly a math teacher at the middle school, and she is now serving those grades 6 through 10 for the NYP program. And finally, you know, we still have Eileen, who's doing our diploma program, and she's serving grades 11 and 12 and doing all that work. Just wanted to give a huge thank you to all the work that they did this summer. They were absolutely instrumental in creating and helping with the IB application. Just getting the go ahead to get the IB isn't enough. You have to go through and do a very lengthy application. And the lion's share of that work was handled by Eileen Knapp, and the whole team got together and put together and were able to get our application approved on the first round without any matters to address, which I understand is not an easy feat with the IB group. In addition to that, we had some work to do around training with the coordinators. We trained both the PYP coordinator and NYP coordinator, Deirdre and Sarah, this summer. So they have been trained in those areas. And we had to meet with the consultants that IB assigns to us for each one of those programs and start to create a plan on how we're going to move forward with the program in each of those schools. And just give you, to kind of give you an idea, sometimes it can take up to 12 weeks to plan an IB professional development. So you have to have a pretty good idea how the calendar works ahead of time to make sure that you get those things implemented. Consultants have been very good in telling us how to move forward with that work. And I think that was one of the things that was really nice is we actually had a chance to hear from, I know I'm going to butcher his name, but the Director General of IB actually presented a video for our opening meeting with AJ Giuliani and the team. It was great to have that kind of recognition for the Aspen schools. We're the first district to be a full district of IB schools. So that was a pretty exciting accomplishment there. So I'm going to go through and give a brief update on what's happening in each building, in each program. I'm hoping, I don't know, somewhere, we'll make it somewhere. I'm going to check just to see In our gallery there, do we have Deirdre Bennett? Is she available to speak? I'll check real quickly. She's not. I'll just handle that.
See. Doesn't look like she's here.
Okay, so Deirdre's not here. So here's what she's been doing with the PYP. There we are with that. Okay. She's been working with each one of the grade levels to come up with a planning process. They actually came up and formed their group to become a professional learning community. That's some of the work that she's starting to do. They created what's called essential agreements with norms and how they're going to operate as a system. And what's important about that is to really create a framework in which they're going to create unit plans for across the grade level. They've been working on student learner profile posters. If you haven't had a chance, you get a chance to go take a look at if you ever walk through the elementary school, they have a learner profile in every classroom. Most of the teachers have adopted some of that work, and they're really starting to do some of the work around the learner profile. The big learner profile that we were focusing on this year, or the first month of IB, is risk taking. It's implemented both in our ex-ed, our outdoor ed, and some of the field trips that have been taken at the elementary school. In addition to that, we had the IB and burritos breakfast with our staff. It was one of the great little things in our first professional development. We brought the entire school together to talk about it curriculum, which is really definitely symbolic. I don't know how much work we got done there, but we did talk about risk taking. It was great having everybody in the same room to go over that work. So that adds well. Deirdre has also created a mini workshop around the learner profile with all of the elective teachers and SPED teachers. She's doing a very good job of incorporating all staff into the curriculum initiative. They're starting to figure out the curriculum with each grade level. And one of the things that they're focused really heavily on, this is with Ashley as well, they're looking to see how they can incorporate the wit and wisdom literacy curriculum into the IB unit plan. So they're really using IB as that umbrella. We're really trying to figure out how are we going to plug in some of the other curriculum pieces that we're using. They're a little bit more focused and a little bit more directional, and also a little bit more assessment oriented under the IB framework. They have the induction course. They've had a whole bunch of teachers taking the induction course, and some of the teachers are already being trained. And so our IB coordinators started to work on the abilities to get that done. They're doing what are called roundtables with other IB teachers in the states. So we're trying to get folks going to that. And let's see, I think they're starting to pick on all their transdisciplinary themes and units of input that we do. I hope to have a list of what those are going to look like at our next meeting. So that's the PYP. Any questions about PYP before I move on? Go ahead.
Pre-K, you mentioned pre-K.
Mhm.
Have we gone to that bill?
So I know that Deirdre has met with Simone and Daryl and the guys. They've done some of the work around IB learner profile there. In fact, we even had some of the preschoolers. I got to find the pictures of the work that they actually showed themselves, drew pictures of themselves, the risk takers, and what they learned about the IB learner profile. That was great. So absolutely.
You briefly mentioned how outdoor ed was tying into this. Could you maybe just speak to how outdoor ed, and if outdoor ed fits in the elementary school or in the primary years grades, how that integrates with the IB program, just so everyone understands how those two things.
Oh, they're absolutely, they dovetail together. In fact, when we met with consultants this summer, reviewing each one of those programs, they thought when we created our units of study, number one, it could be a portion of that, all the environmental aspects of the outdoor ed could be incorporated into the units of study and the science and social studies and some of the other areas, content areas that are addressed, and both PYP and MYP, or with the transdisciplinary things. So the other thing that can happen with that is it can also be part of the personal projects the students are doing. So there'll be two different ways that that can be tied in with IB.
And one other question, you mentioned the wit and wisdom reading curriculum. That's an approved, IB curriculum.
So
Other PYPs are using that?
They're very happy. We actually have a school in Denver that's using the same curriculum as an IB school. One of the groups we're trying to organize a trip there. I'm not going to steal. I think Sarah Afters at the school. I'm going to steal her thunder, but she's actually planning a field trip, a school visit down to Discovery Canyon to see the NYP progress there and bringing some key stakeholders and teachers to see it in operation. Because I think before we start the training, with people seeing what the finished product looks like, they will do a lot to fill in the gaps of what this is going to look like.
And no need to recreate the wheel, someone's already.
Yes, exactly. The more that we can learn from other people's mistakes, the better off we're going to be, I think, with this, especially with implementation. So I'm going to move to the NYP, and I saw that Sarah after there. I know, Sarah, do you want to jump in, or do you want me to keep driving?
I can jump in, thanks.
Okay. Can you see the presentation?
Yeah, so hi everyone, Sarah After, MYP coordinator along with librarian at the middle school. And so for the middle years program, it's 6th through 10th grade. But what at the high school, the 9th and 10th grade teachers, almost all of them have both upper and lower grade levels of the high school. So I've been working closely with Eileen for the diploma program and the middle years program. We're having those meetings together with subject departments. So we've made a schedule of meeting with every high school teacher every other week. And then on the weeks that I'm not at the high school, I'm at the middle school meeting with them every other week. So for middle years, every teacher from 6th through actually 12th grade is meeting to work on MYP or DP every other week, along with other time within their subject area or their grade level area. The learner profile, which you heard about for PYP, is one of the pieces of the framework that is the same from pre-K through 12th grade. So we started that as a kickoff. One of the things that we really talked about of wanting the IB program and feeling like it was right for Aspen School District is to discontinue the use of islands of schools, but bring us all together. And that's one of the pieces that is unifying us as a district, are these learner profile pieces. So when we had the breakfast, although there wasn't much content, it was a celebration. I think we're at that part of it where that energy is really important, the beginning of something. And so we've really been fostering that energy along with the learner profile attributes. For 6th through 8th grade, since we have new curriculum resources for math and for ELA, we have illustrative math and ARC, American Reading Company. We remapped the curriculum with those resources in mind so that when we're moving forward with MYP, we know what is happening at what times of the year. We will also be doing that with all subject specific teachers in the other grade levels and at the middle school. There's an induction course that was hosted by IB Arms, which is the Rocky Mountain group of IB teachers and coordinators, and it's in the evenings from 7 to 8 o'clock at night. So with the beginning of the school year, I think it's great to celebrate that there are 3 teachers participating in that on their own time. We also are planning right now a visit to Discovery Canyon to see MYP in action. Their coordinator is also 6th through 10th grade, and coordinators tend to either be at a middle school that goes up through 8th or at the high school that's 9th and 10th. So it's the one other coordinator that I know at the state right now that's 6th through 10th that I can learn from, and we can learn from what they're doing. Also, they're a district that we've heard great things about their MYP program. So we want to learn from their successes and see what we can steal and take away from there. And so we're setting that up. And at the middle school, we've talked a lot about that we celebrate grades, we celebrate, sports, but we want to celebrate those learner profile attributes. So we're bringing back a system of similar to if you're aware of the skier ticket system, but it's for the learner profile. that we will be hosting so that we have a chance to celebrate when kids are really embodying and exhibiting, going above and beyond and showing those attributes. And the big thing that we have coming up is an MYP workshop, which all 6th through 12th grade teaching staff will be going to on October 18th, and people from the IB world outside will be coming and hosting that workshop. So that's where we're started right now, but I think just having the energy around it is what we're focusing on, and the learner profile that's really aligning the district.
So Sarah, can I ask?
Yes.
So do you think more teachers would join the ARMS induction course on their own time from 7 to 8 if it weren't necessarily their own time?
I think, you know, the workshop that is on October 18th will be those pieces. So everybody's having it. These are people that were like, I can't wait. I want to do it now.
That's good.
And so it is going to be available for everybody on that October 18th during that professional development day. But the great thing about IB ARMS is that they have different workshops that are relatively inexpensive that we can have people go to around the year too. So that will be available for us throughout time.
And do you sense more excitement about this, or anybody, or feeling overwhelmed that it's just so much, or a little of both?
I would say, yeah, both. I think the beginning of the school year is always stressful. It hasn't been an easy beginning of the school year. You know, comes after a year of, you know, people feeling trauma of just going through the pandemic. So there's definitely, I do not discount any of that. That is all going on. There's a lot of new going on this year too, with new admin, new curriculum, new things. But the thing that it doesn't take away is people are really excited about this. They're excited about having something that unites the district pre-K through 12. They're excited about us building the vocabulary so that we're all talking about the same thing with the same words as a district, so that we can really push our teaching as together. They're excited about the conversations that we're having when we're having those weekly meetings about how can we make the best experience for our students. All the teachers are excited about those pieces. You know, the other piece, capacity problem is real, about how much energy and time do people have, but the excitement and energy is there, and we're working on building the capacities that people can have that time and space that they can put forth the energy that they want to towards IB.
Great, thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. And finally, we have the DP program. There's a few things in there. We definitely have, I think, is Eileen, are you available to speak?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Theron. I'm Eileen Knapp, the DP Diploma Program Coordinator. Just as Sarah was saying, the high school teachers, all of them are going to participate in that October 18th MYP training. And we have, let's see, we have in the diploma program, almost all of our students taking at least IB Math or IB English. So 99% of our students are enrolled in a DP class in 11th and 12th grade. Just last week, I presented to post-secondary on CAS for All. So they all, our juniors, will have an opportunity to work on CAS experiences and a CAS project, and that stands for Creativity Activity Service. And they were really excited in that class, so that was awesome. Our new librarian, Carolyn Cares, is supporting me with the extended essay, and she has been awesome because of all of her background and knowledge in research. Let's see, our seniors are finishing up their extended essays. We have 32 diploma seniors, and we have more than 40 candidates as juniors. And the last couple things I wanted to say were in the diploma meeting.
Eileen?
Can you not hear me?
Eileen, there's a question.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We just got excited.
I was so surprised, when my daughter went to the, then I remember there were only about, 16 to 18 kids, so now we're doubled in size. Is there any particular reason for the diploma program?
We definitely have a lot of one-year IB classes, and the schedule has now having 8 options for classes has allowed more students the opportunity. We also, I would like to highlight, have a lot of students in TOK that might not be full diploma, but they're interested in that course and understanding more about the theory of knowledge. And, the more we talk about and emphasize IB and show kids that they're already doing these skills and they're capable, the more we're going to see our numbers increase.
That's exciting. That's awesome.
And the last, I'm sorry, stop me if I'm talking too much. The last thing I just wanted to add on, Sarah said we're having MYP meetings and diploma meetings together. And the first thing I know it was mentioned we covered was the learner profile. And today and tomorrow we're talking about inquiry, which is an approach to teaching and learning, and talking about specific strategies that can promote inquiry in the classrooms. And in the diploma program meetings, we talked about our RANDA professional growth goal around IB. So everybody in the high school has one goal that's specific to IB, but also specific to the person in their journey on the IB journey. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you.
I have another question, Eileen.
Mm-hmm.
If I assume she can, even though she can't see, I can't see. If someone is doing NHS and the CAPS, and there's 2 service requirements, can they overlap and be counted for both? So that
Yes.
they can. Okay.
Yeah, they can. For CAS, Creativity Activity Service, the students just need to accomplish 7 learning objectives, and it's not an hours requirement. So that makes it really beautiful, and it makes it specific to the student for what they're interested in and their passion. And yes, they can use those hours for NHS as well.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
I just have a quick question about the trainings for staff, and it was mentioned in the AEF meeting actually that staff would love to have some sort of childcare during those trainings, and so I just wanted to mention that and see if we could kind of.
Sure, and I think that's something kind of a separate topic, but I know that we're meeting with Shirley Gooder in the city to come up with a permanent solution for it. But right now, I know that Gordon Carter and a lot of teachers have been pressing and kind of developing their own childcare strategies for some of the PE days moving forward. But we're looking at 2 different approaches. One is the informal approach that the staff is currently doing, and 2, I know that we're meeting with the city to see if there can be a permanent solution to what that looks like. So there's a couple.
It's not just staff.
It's not just
the
staff,
parent
exactly.
community as
Yeah.
well that has to accommodate
For sure,
their kids
for
on
sure,
a
for
normal
sure.
workday. So
But I know that that's definitely being looked at. I know that another group that's been very helpful now is the Aspen Connections with Catherine Sands helping find spots and procure spots for staff and for families that are having difficulty doing that. Just a few final notes on IB. I have to say that having the coordinators that we selected, they've done a fantastic job of just really bringing this to bear. And I think having those, and I just gotta thank the board for allowing us to have the FTE, to have those folks be able to do that kind of work, because I think we'll see an actual implementation of the trend directly from district offices, having those folks, their boots on the ground in the buildings, meeting with teachers weekly. We'll start to see the change that we really want to see with the actual K-12 alignment and really structured and thoughtful.
one question on that, is that, I know it was full-time this summer, correct, in preparation, is that a 12-month position going forward?
They're given extended days of contract is how that position is currently being done. However, if you talk to all 3 of my coordinators, they're going to ask that it be a full-time position. They're starting to really grow the responsibilities, and having some of the teaching responsibilities and some of the other responsibilities that they have. It's very difficult for them to manage both. So they already can see that they could definitely work as best. We might be coming back for another ask at some point. where we get that.
Is that a standard and
It is
typical?
a standard. A lot of the schools do have FTE that's completely allotted to those positions.
In 12 months a year though?
I don't know if it's 12 months. I think it's extended year contract, which would be not a teacher's contract with the typical 9 months, but the 10 month to 11 month, depending on what's going on there.
All right.
Oh, and Deirdre's on, just real quick. Deirdre, did you want to say anything before we close with the IB presentation?
Hi, I'm so sorry I'm late. I don't know if you have any particular questions regarding PYP. I'm more than happy to answer them for you.
I was trying to show them your folder that you shared with me with all the pictures of the work that you've been doing with your team. So I'll try to get that shared with the board so they can take a look at their leisure at some of the work that you guys have been doing. It's really cool.
Absolutely. It's been great seeing everything come to life, and we are currently working on which 2 units each grade level will write and teach. So I'm thrilled about that. Before we could even get into that, the teams had to write their long range plans so I could view everyone's grade level curriculum and to match wit and wisdom the best I can with the PYP transdisciplinary themes, which are our units. So it's exciting stuff, and the teachers are working really hard and they are excited to start implementing PYP.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
That's great.
We're super pleased. As you can see, it's an excellent team and they're making great progress. Really, we just got out of the way. They're doing such a great job of getting it organized and working and finding the resources that I couldn't be more proud of.
Is there like a Gantt chart with like key milestones and key activities there and share with us?
You know, I think we shared that earlier, but would you like me to find that? I'll make sure that you guys get email.
Yeah, maybe just when we're reviewing the IB, just bring it up.
So you guys can see what.
You are here.
You are here.
You want to trail that?
You want to trail that. No.
I get lost, I just.
No, keep your head right. I'm sure we'll get that next night.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the other question that continually comes up on that is just how much student affecting it is at this point. And I realize that the answer is not much yet, that it's more about teacher training. But as we go through this, taking the long, 2 to 3 year view, at what point, how much impact are we having on student learning based on the movement in this program as we go through that now? That would be interesting. That's
Right, absolutely. And I think that we're excited to see that too, because I do think as staff becomes more familiar, you're going to see it being implemented with a lot more fidelity. Secondly, the longer students are implicated in the program, the more you're going to be seeing that kind of structured thinking occurring. And I just think that that's going to happen over time. And I know that as part of the IB rollout and what the consultants work with us as far as the adoption goes, it's very important and very canvassy just to figure out how we meet those milestones. And I think you'll start to see a real impact on students as we start to transition through.
And maybe having some key indicators on adoption and things like that would be.
Okay.
Really great.
Okay.
Like X number of teachers, our target was to have 100.
Sure.
We have 120 hopefully by then.
Okay.
Something
Sure.
I think would be really helpful to everybody to measure progress of what I think is probably the biggest academic initiative we've had in a long time.
Right.
But important to make sure that we get it done and we're actively communicating.
Okay. We'll do.
And there's been no concern that with all this hard work that it takes away in any way from the actual education going on with the kids in the classrooms now?
I think, are you talking about from the teacher perspective, or are they seeing?
Are they able to give the same amount of teaching to the kids with all this extra work that they're doing? Or, IB training?
I think that for the most part, they're just what I think the IB coordinators are trying to do is find out what the teachers are doing now and figuring out how to make it.
So it's really coordinator work.
It's really coordination.
It's not
of doing it.
teachers.
It's not in addition to, now there is some more, because I've talked to teachers, they say that it's a lot. Doing written wisdom and doing the IB adoption has been a lot for them, for example, at the PYP level. But I think for the most part, our coordinators are very sensitive to that and look for those easy gains, easy wins, good stuff that's already occurring. classroom. And as the teachers are rewriting their curriculum for wisdom, this is a great opportunity for us to.
Great.
So we're glad they didn't have.
Great.
So we have to do the work anyway, and this allows us to learn it.
Perfect.
For sure.
And anytime you adopt a new curriculum, it's a lot of work anyway. It's a lot of drinking out of the fire. So that's why it's so helpful to have those coordinators there, because they're coordinating the coaching, well, back on the list for a little bit, just focus on here. And so it's really helpful to have, and you know, these are really proficient teachers in their own right. So for them to be coaching the rest of the staff is really helpful. Teachers really learn from teachers best. So that's kind of the model.
Excellent, thank you. Very much.
Of course.
Then finally, it's kind of a hello and goodbye week. We want to welcome our new athletic director, John Caschizzi, who has hit the ground running on Monday. He's been touring all the teams, and you can't miss him when he's there. He's not a small man. He's incredibly friendly. He's a welcome addition. Seems to know sport really, really well. Very passionate. We got to talk a lot of softball game last night. And so it's good to see John and welcome him. It's going to be a great addition to our team here. And he's obviously working very closely with Sarah Strasburger and Becky Oliver in the high school. But he's also reaching out to all the coaches. Also this week, we're saying goodbye to Elise Gerber, a school nurse who's been with us for 20 years. She's moving on to other employment opportunities. She's always been interested in, I think she even started out in an elevator facility. And she's going back to one down the valley. She has a leadership role there. And Friday will be her last day. I have about a week's gap before our new school nurse starts. So in summary, there's been a lot of interviewing going on, even as the school year has been getting underway. So we wish Elise all the best and welcome John to our ranks. So that concludes the superintendent's report.
Great. So we will now move to 6.1, board priorities and goals. And I'm asking Jonathan to lead this discussion. He's been a lot of work into this.
Okay. Sure. And what I was gonna do, hold on, see if I can figure it. Is throw up the document that we sent out to everybody. Yep. I'm trying to get it up so everybody can see it. So we're all looking at this.
Is it currently
Both
in Word
disabled
docs or is it?
participant screen sharing. Well,
The
since
latest.
I didn't have Eliza to send it to post it.
Right, okay. So is the last one that was in the email or?
Yeah, so you can just check.
Try it again now, Jonathan.
So we'll start with this past year's goals, correct?
Yeah, I think,
And
Review of.
okay. Okay, so
Good work. Actually see that better than I can see on the computer.
that's great.
So I guess just kind of walking through this, here's what it is, here's where the comments that people had made. Went through. I just was gonna go through it unless somebody had an observation, kind of check them off and say. "We agree with that statement," and then forward.
So that's good.
Yes, mitigation strategies, this was Susan. So the first one, just for everybody, was to make sure we had a safe opening. And that, you know, we worked in several areas, complying with CDE guidelines, working in collaboration with the superintendent to develop the safe reopening plan that includes all stakeholders. It would be as a board, we actively participated in those processes, and hopefully we're able to help move things along in certain instances, and then bring everybody's voice into there as well. We worked collaborating with the health authorities, even though at times we were all frustrated. I think we did our best to be an active part of preventing spread in the community. And hats off to Dave, especially continuing these ongoing conversations to work with Aiken County Health and getting forward with that. And as well, obviously there's a thing further down here about testing and for all their work and the whole team that helped out with that. And then obviously it did impact some of the other priorities we had here, especially the strategic planning. We kind of basically sidelined that. But now hopefully this year we'll be able to, now that things are a little more normal, we're definitely not through this, that it will be a lot less impact on both the school, our community, and moving forward and continuing to improve things. On the academic improvement side, we did evaluate the curriculum, so Dave led that. We were able to get a lot done there. Action plans, I think we just talked about IB, that's a clear outcome of those curriculum audits, along with plenty of other things that we'll continue to follow up with. So we got there. Susan did put in here a thing about that we should all recognize, in that this year we had partial testing, and then the prior this year we didn't have any testing, so that did inhibit a lot of our ability to monitor things. I think teachers and staff did a great job as well as they're trying to get what data they could and what we could be able to monitor given the circumstances. We still have that follow up. Don't forget that there. And if we were able to get an answer on how we did relative to other schools in terms of, or in the state in terms of performance on that stuff.
For CMAS or?
Yeah,
For CMAS, yeah. Yeah, I'm working on CMAS. We have the SAT data, like school comparisons. And I also put yearly, I don't know if you guys are on board. So I think we have growth data too. I'll add that to Jonathan. So
Okay.
Yes.
So that was a comment made by Susan, and
So, but we're gonna talk about the to do later. So,
yeah, this I
so
just
some
wanted
comments
to,
on that, of how we're going to do that later on.
yeah. So I was just trying to summarize what these were our objectives when we started out, what we got done, what we did, and just in general trying to comment on that, so we gotta have some good transparency about what we were able to achieve our goals during the challenging year, to say the least. The bonds and I guess this is bonds, it was actually bonds plus the 2 sales tax initiatives that are here in the detail. We did a great job. Thank you to the community, as they're the ones that did a great job and voted for these important initiatives. And now we're in the process of actually putting that money to work. And I put a link in here to the presentation if anybody wanted to go see it. But definitely talks about how we're advancing in terms of moving forward with all of those different bond initiatives. And as well, just as important are the 2 sales tax initiatives, because they do really bring in a lot of extra funding to our district and enable us to do a lot of things that we would not be able to do otherwise. So
That was a huge accomplishment for a good year.
Yeah, that's amazing.
and lots of people were very helpful in it. The community, the community support committee, the ADF, all the especially the help we got from the consultants and all that kind of stuff. So I think it was a team effort all the way around, and everybody did it.
And the board itself.
But it's just nice to have such a supportive community in that area, for sure. Game changer.
Absolutely.
Wayne added in the comment here, all of the stuff we're doing around the line with the facilities and the priorities, and the big buckets. So on the strategic planning side, this is probably the one where we had the least progress last year. But we did in terms of, at least the bond initiatives, I think we have, the buckets are very well aligned with what needs to be done in terms of the strategic plan going forward. Devil's in the details, obviously, but I think there's some real progress on several of them, especially in housing there. It seems like it might actually be able to come to fruition much sooner than was originally thought possible. So hopefully we'll see how that goes. But then we do need to come back, and this is in the 2021-22 priorities, and Dave has also proposed this as a priority to get done early in the year in these schools. So culture and climate. So I think there are some key things we did as a board here. One is recording and posting all the meetings online, even prior to COVID. Prior to COVID, we were doing that. We restarted the board briefs, which was an ask from the community, and so we got that up and running again. We also improved the public comment process. I think we both cleaned it up a little bit, or we're doing much better about tracking. Still think there's some opportunity for improvement, but we were also much more flexible and just trying to get the community voice into our meetings, I think, throughout the year. So I think that was helpful.
Even when we couldn't have people here
Yeah.
at all in person.
We realize that that's a pretty good way to have people participate in our meetings, which is nice. And so that's nice that we can continue it. And we probably need to work more on follow-up from public comments, or have more of a system, I'd say, but I think we made the best of having to do remote meetings, and we're continuing the good parts of that.
So working with all the stakeholders in the pandemic, here's where it's issue testing. And obviously, I think everybody proactively works to get us through the crisis. The board, the staff, the administration, the teachers, the parents. I think everybody has their best at heart. Sometimes things got a little tense, but I think that's probably not unusual in a global pandemic. So there were a lot of tension for everyone. So in the end, I think we got through it and came out the other side. We're moving forward. And then another thing that I think was very important in terms of climate and culture was the approval of the contract for the teachers at the end of the year. Hats off to all the people who worked really hard to get that thing to the finish line. I think I saw maybe Stephanie was on the call earlier. I don't know if she's still there. But I think that's an important thing to recognize for everybody. The members who worked on that and Dave led it. And then just the collaboration of that team to get it done. So I think that's also an important thing as we think about climate and culture moving forward. Governance. So this is probably another one where things were pretty much stopped, I would almost say, by the pandemic. And it's kind of one of the key ones as we look forward into next year. We did modify the superintendent's evaluation process to be something more manageable and just better aligned with the needs of the school and the community during the global pandemic. And overall, most of our focus was on continuing to improve academics, as was reflected up in the things that we talked about in the curriculum audits and things along those lines. So I think that's it. I don't know if anybody, all in all, given the global pandemic and everything that was going on, I think we got some pretty important things accomplished. So that's representative of everybody here, and all the teachers and staff and parents and students who are out there.
Thanks for putting that together.
Yeah, that was exhaustive.
I think we should move on to what we want to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not one for lots of people.
And before we go through it, may I propose that we do the same thing we did last year, move academics to at least number 2?
I was gonna say it for you, actually. I was gonna propose that half of Susie could move academics to number one.
Okay, I'll take
Because
one.
I knew you were gonna say that.
I'll take, I was gonna accept two, but one. We could decide amongst ourselves if we wanted to do one or two.
I was gonna propose the same thing. 'Cause I thought it-
But then in no particular order, other than probably the first one, I think was the most.
Yeah,
I
so
think we need to continue to ensure the ongoing operations of the school, the pandemic's not over, as noted by these lovely masks that we're all wearing. And so we need to continue, and, I think we're doing a great job so far. Definitely, there's still an issue with testing and things like that.
Can we talk about the big topics before we get into the details on each of them, to make sure that we have agreement on?
yeah, because
I was just gonna give an overview of all four, and then
Oh,
we can begin to. So that's the key one, strategic planning. Governance in terms of all the different things that we gotta do with that, and then continuing focus on academics. So I just put down what I thought were some of the critical issues under each one of those, and I don't know how we wanna attack this in any individual order.
well, Katie.
It's
wanted
easy to move
speak
academics up to
next.
number 2 with that.
Yeah, let's move it to number 2 and Katie and then maybe Blaine. and-
Yeah, I mean, my first comment is just on the overall ones, which is I believe that given the amount of money the community entrusted with us, with the bond, that deserves its own priority, because I have a feeling it's gonna be taking a lot of our time, especially finishing up the housing stuff.
Right.
So while it does tie into the strategic plan, I think it's an
I agree.
ongoing issue.
I have it as a separate one. And I had actually 2 others.
Okay.
Sort of, I mean, they're in here, but I would think they should have their own category. Supporting robust practices to attract and retain staff, that's a continued goal, and then equity, completing a board resolution, implementing and addressing ways that we can monitor areas of equity concern, in general, but I feel like that should happen also. Okay. Discussion, or we want to hear from Dwayne next?
The bond is definitely one that I was gonna try and handle for sure. I don't have any disagreement with standing up there too, that you mentioned, and I really, again, Jonathan, definitely appreciate obviously all the analysis on the front end, and setting this up for good conversation going forward. So yes, so far.
Yeah, no, reiterate that, I didn't mean to go right into how to. I'm impatient.
Okay, so we're pulling out housing as its own, we're pulling out bond as its own.
No, we're pulling out bond as its own, but housing is within bond.
I put bond under strategic planning.
Yeah,
Okay, take that out and put it by itself, with
Yeah,
housing
just make it
underneath
its
bond.
well,
Whole
yeah,
thing, and then I'll get some bullets down
Okay.
there in terms of what are the actual actions.
yeah, I mean, they're obviously gonna tie together a little bit.
Yeah.
There's no, I mean, I would, the staffing issue, to me, is the top line in academics. Cause that's, you can't teach if you don't have teachers, and you can't feed the kids if you don't have food service people, well, et cetera. So, and again, that ties into housing, and it ties into everything ties in, so, I would be okay with just having that as a top one under academics, and not necessarily having a whole line item on it. Having said that, I think the HR component that came out under, where did that come out under? Under governance, I think that is, yeah, well,
I think that because staff attraction and retention has so many facets to it, which includes housing, it includes just the climate culture in the building, it includes lots of things in itself. I would prefer to have it as a, it's also been something that, we've worked on, but we haven't really, I don't feel like had any real proof that we've improved in it.
And that's why the rate
Right.
is for each group.
And we've had a lot of turnover, which, that is, I feel like fairly typical for post pandemic year, but also, just for the profession in general. But I think any ways to address that are important. Make a lot of progress is what keep having to hire people.
The only thing
reason I
is,
put it in policy is because I think the only way we're gonna get back at it is if we rewrite the policy and like dedicate resources to it.
But that's something to do in that category. If you put everything that we need to write a policy under governance, we'll just have all these bullet points under governance and not a big
So-
category of what we want to achieve.
but these are board priorities. I'm pretty sure we're not gonna be rewriting the HR policies
So
ourselves.
this is our policy.
Our
we're
policy,
gonna write.
we have,
No, but it says rewrite the HR policies.
well, we have,
He
it's called
means-
OEA.
Yeah, he means OEA. It sounded like that to me at first.
Okay.
So there is a board
misunderstood
policy that, directs the superintendent to have certain practices and things like that. That we have to, I mean, that's the only way.
Policies and policies.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I don't think we're talking about moving away from policy governance. We still need, that's kind of the standard for school boards and what it means. It just needs to be reviewed and make sure that we think whatever is in there is the right stuff and then have a good dialogue with the administration about, do we have to
Would you be willing to
practices?
rewrite it, saying, specifying the policies were our OE policies instead of
Yes,
HR policies?
that's OEA.
Yeah.
That's not a big deal. It's just more, at the end of the day, what do we want the outcome to be? And I feel like we've struggled a lot in the past with, we want to impact the climate and culture or the staff retention. But the only way really for us to do that is to do some policy work.
It's the only way for us to do anything. That's how we do our work. So if you put it all
Well,
under
for example,
policy.
there's no policy on the bond. There's no policy.
Yeah, that's not.
Academic. I mean, there are plenty of academics policy,
OE,
but there's not a bond policy. just
Yeah,
a
there
separate-
is. Facilities and,
Financial.
yeah, all kinds of.
I know, but the priority, I mean, I would hate to have this read like, OE whatever for the bond instead of just saying the bond, and talk about how we're gonna. work on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
maybe put in for emphasis.
policies are the way that we address all of these goals. And there is some work to be done in governance,
Mhm.
which is, I totally agree, onboard new members, work with consultants. Another thing that I have that I can't figure out if it should go under academics or governance is we have to have a very defined way to monitor academics and see how we're improving or not. And that's a piece that we didn't really do this past year. So that is something I feel like is really important. So, I mean, it really doesn't matter what category anything goes in, but I do think that some of the specifics that fall into another category can move from governance, and then we're not quite so overloaded.
Okay. Well, the two that I had, principal. Were those two, the commitments made in the AEL contract were specifically referring to the commitment to go back into the salary schedule. Yeah. So that's.
That might be,
Yeah, I think instead of saying commitments in the contract, I mean,
yeah,
let's talk about specifically the ones that we're gonna,
Probably on the salary schedule.
because a lot of those commitments in the contract are not in our.
Yeah.
They're not under
True.
us, so.
Yep.
So that's good.
but I think the other.
And then do you want, and for as far as housing, I don't know if we want to put it in bond process or.
That's in the bond process. I mean, the housing issue is a huge element of the bond thing.
There's also.
It doesn't need to be listed in two places.
I think that's okay. It's in the bond, yeah.
Okay, and the other one that I put, that I think has a lot to do with, so. This is kind of in there. It would be very much.
Great if we could fit on one page.
Like, okay, here it is,
Sorry about that.
culture and climate, was the other one.
Yeah.
So basically, it's the HR policy, and then either culture and climate needs to be a part of that policy or broken out separate.
Well, so, I mean, we're gonna be talking in, after we do this, about the 360 review process and other things, so.
Yep.
I think we should have one of these sub-bullet points related to whether it's 360 review at just the superintendent level or more than that. You know, I think that there is and we don't, I'm pretty sure we don't know yet exactly what we want to do, we haven't talked about it. But I think that there should be a bullet point in one of those places, whether it's at staff or whether it's governance. Related to that, it's not just climate and culture, it's specifically the review process of how we're evaluating superintendent performance, which is our, #1 job. So,
Well, I have here, superintendent performance under, here, under governance.
And I think that's appropriate.
It can go either way, I guess, it really.
right, no, but I'm addressing the culture and climate question that you were bringing up related to a 360 review. And, one place or the other, I don't think we need. There's a separate HR policy and not just related to, 360 review, I think, is pulled out in a separate item from that first bullet point of rewriting our HR policies.
Well, I just put, so to not have to list everything, I was kind of like, and that's why I put up-to-date practices and policies. So I think 360 is a fairly standard modern tool. I mean, we can list them all out in the purpose of brevity. That's why I just left it at that. And then on culture and climate, I think we either have the opportunity to either leave it as a part of that policy, OE8, or write a policy about culture and climate, but I don't know that we need to make that determination today.
I think it should, I would say have it part of OEA.
You just call separate preferences. Sorry.
He thinks instead.
Separate.
No, just
Separate.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, great.
Can
We had the same format. This was much more, I think, approachable. This has been much more, I think, actionable than what we had in the past. Remember, we've had in the past this kind of laundry list of priorities that stand separate and apart from the set of governance policies that the board operates by. And it became so, I think, long and also somewhat ticky-tack, a little bit kind of in the weeds, so to speak, such that it really never became anything that we abided by. This last year, I think it was some good initiatives here to condense it down to 4 or 5 areas of focus and make sure that they were actionable. John, you did a great job of initiating that. You see the work product. The board has had a hand in some of the progress here, which has been great. The district in totality has achieved a lot of great ground in the face of amazing obstacles. This particular format works. We've already proven it. So I like how this is organized. It need not recite or reference each and every policy that the board is focusing on, because that becomes just a repetition. This is 4 or 5 priorities. Let's get after it. At the end of the year, we'll probably have done a good job of moving the needle.
Great.
Done.
Excellent.
To that point, I think under as we're talking about the 360 as well as the process of evaluating the superintendent, we have what are the numbers that were the 5?
Yes, or 135.
Can't even.
Yeah. /SR.
I have no idea why there's 5. It all says the same thing. I think we should just consolidate into one, how we're evaluating. You know, we're gonna talk about that, and we're talking about what the goals and stuff we're setting, so perhaps we can add into that, including the policy related to that. Just very specifically, because I think we need to just get it done, we keep talking about it.
Okay, I just put update
That's
the
gonna
policy
leave
as
that
it
for y'all
relates
after
to
I'm
the
done.
super.
Well, I
Does
mean,
this work, Kate? Update the policy as it relates to the superintendent's evaluation
yeah,
to improve the robustness of the process and include, and I put in here, include third party assessments of performance.
Yeah.
'Cause
I think that's good.
and I just think as a publicly elected board, we probably need that help to both make sure you guys have adequate professional development and all those kinds of things, and then just also make sure there's some like outside evaluation that's making sure we're having a good third party kind of keeping us all honest, given past experiences.
Because I think we all use
Yeah.
as feedback from the person.
Right, yeah.
Has that been done in your experience, Dave, outside?
So there's a huge range of evaluation tools and opportunities.
yeah. no,
360 does turn up on occasion. Many school boards fail to invest in leadership appropriately, and they don't do 360s, and they don't send their administration to trainings or conferences so that the administrators actually start losing ground. So it's startling, but that's more common in districts. And I was talking with the head of a major charter school network. I think he's in Brooklyn, and I think and I know his board invests in 360s for him and his entire leadership team. So you know, I've been kind of reading up on 360s. It has not been my experience, but it sounds very intriguing, and I've talked with people who have done it, and it's a great growth opportunity for the leaders that undergo those processes. So I think it would be a really neat thing, and I'm curious why more boards don't, because to Jonathan's point, you know, and as we're about to experience, board members join and board members depart, and some are good at doing evaluations and really understand the work, but there's a learning curve to get there. It's usually 2 or 3 years to get really good at being a board member. And so I think that an independent 360 evaluation could provide a framework for new board members to understand the evaluation process. So it's independent, third party, and I think it's a good investment of both leadership and the board.
Right.
Candidly.
Right.
And just historically, since I started on the board 8 years ago, there have been board members who advocated for a 360 review, and the first time we really consciously entertained the idea. So there's progress. Maybe.
Right, well, yeah.
So, shall we move on?
Yeah, so I think the homework on this is I will continue to put this out on the drive again for the next meeting.
Well, I have a few more, can we have more comments?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
do you maybe move on like to the next topic or move on to the next?
If you have more time,
Okay.
more comments?
So, yes, I do. So under, I think one thing that, you know, our committee work, I think, the board committee work needs to be reflected in this. And having the bond is a very important thing. And there's lots of committees now that are working on bonds of facilities and housing. The other issue is that we don't address at all is financial transparency. You know, the FAB is working a lot. I mean, it's Linda's work, but there's a lot of support that goes into it and a lot of board members' time that goes into supporting that. So I think we need to figure out a way to, and it gets back to culture and climate. I mean, we talk about communication and all that in here in a couple different points. But I think the financial transparency issue, not just related to the bond, but related to overall, is an important one that I'd like to make sure that we continue on as a board district. I don't want it to be a separate bullet point.
It could be under government.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Use pretty
putting
good.
another,
yeah,
actually, that's one thing that we're gonna talk about later. Also in the, like Katie said, again, what the numbers.
Yes, yes.
ESR. I think one thing, I made some comments to what Eliza had originally put together. Recognizing that a lot of the reasons we weren't in compliance was because we felt like we were giving instruction directly to employees because of the committees we were based in.
That's not.
And that the policy had not yet recognized that. So that's something that we need to clarify.
Well, so under governance, then, I mean, I think that we got a lot of bullet points. I mean, clearly the onboarding is an important, happens every other year thing. And reviewing policies and monitoring procedures, I mean, I think that comes under that second bullet point. But do we want to specifically mention to address the issues that arose during our review of our own performance, it wasn't consistent? Or do we just want to say we want a better model and, you know, sort of the same thing that we tried to do last year but didn't get to?
Well, yeah, my understanding is that we move forward in trying to find contacts at Caschizzi to help us out with this work as we go forward. And that we would somehow actively look to engage them or somebody else and start solving some of these issues that we have outstanding, like why aren't the monitoring or why didn't the monitoring reports in the past produce the results as it related to the policy? How can we fix that?
Well, I mean, I think success this next year, in my mind, is we fix it by the end of this year. Like that we have gone through these things, and whether it's with a Caschizzi consultant or some other way, who knows, but that the goal should be that we're gonna prioritize this to actually make it so this time next year, we're not saying we weren't successful because the policy didn't make sense.
So 6.2 is a policy update. I don't know if there's going to be much news about that or not from Caschizzi. No. Okay.
But I guess or the way that I was attacking it was, let's just sit down, that's why I put do the HR policy or the OEA.
Yeah.
Do the, let's get a couple done and work on it, and then solve some of those issues by, just actually writing a new policy and discussing how we want the monitoring report to look like and what should be in it. Because I think Caschizzi they'll probably have a lot of, this is the right way to characterize it, but usually when I work with these types of organizations, they'll give you a lot of boilerplate. But at the end of the day, you still have to personalize it into what you really want.
But I think they can help us back map if once they see all our bullet points, I think they can say, okay, that belongs in this.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think a little bigger picture on the priority perspective, which is, are we trying to set the goal of working on it, which is what this says, or are we gonna try to fix it by the end of the year? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
You mean,
But like, we're gonna have a revised set of policies overall, end of story, versus a little more nebulous, we're gonna work on it this year.
My goals or my opinion on that matter is too ambitious to fix all the problems we have, given all that we got and all the other things on this list.
But if you start at the big boys, which I think are the results monitoring package.
And I'm getting there.
Right, they're internally consistent, right? I mean, that is to say, you fix one particular results monitoring, the activity it doesn't transcend. And it's true that what we had crafted wasn't actually directing us in the right, end game. And we kept riding by an old model, looking back to 1997 is what it felt like. We kept looking over the shoulder. And I think what became the end goal was the size and thickness of the report was truly an accomplishment unto itself. And it just became so intimidating that it no longer became of any particular effectiveness or value. So if you said next year, we're going to fix, revise and update, but you have to have it with the professional leadership. Of course. Right. Yeah. So, it's still a bit of a guiding position that you have to take. But 4 or 5 reasonable, it's no different than what we did last year. We didn't try to solve the world and cure cancer on one set of priorities. We broke it down in bite-sized chunks that again were actionable, understandable, kind of almost in layperson terms, and we got stuff done.
It's a great goal though, to.
Well, no, okay, so taking that, I mean, maybe it's just to, dumb that down basically, and to say, okay, so we already said we're gonna fix the review process, so that's one big chunk. The other big chunk we do is academic monitoring, and I have some comments on that. You know, let's try to fix what numbers, what we're looking at for that. And then the other, big policies, first of all, I think they're all like tied into each other. So it gets a little convoluted. The HR policy you said, and then are there any other big areas, without getting into the numbers, like any big areas that we want to make sure that we've addressed? I mean, I think the academics of the superintendent and the climate and culture ones are really important. Everything, what's going to happen is everything else is going to start becoming less relevant.
Maybe we
Because
should invite Caspi, that guy, Matt,
Yeah.
to come up here.
I've actually got a note called Caspi,
Great.
Matt guy.
Great.
That-
Now, maybe he could come, he's great.
I just want to make sure we have specific goals.
Yeah.
You know,
No, and I,
Is to, I mean, the goal could be revise policies to reflect the position of the board, and you get as far as you can get.
yeah.
I mean,
And then I think this gentleman at Caspi can help us with that. I really do.
Yeah,
And that's his job.
So let's invite him up here.
the other thing I was hoping would happen, Katie, is once we get the strategic plan, hopefully
Yes.
that will give us more visibility into, okay, well, let's attack. Because if Dave identifies us, here are the 5 biggest strategic objectives that need to be solved for the school district. And so if one of those is staff retention, you know, getting the best teacher in the classroom, as an example. Well, then we can go, okay, well, let's go back to all the policies that impact the teachers and make sure we have the best.
right, and really, that's a better way to do it, if you've got a strategic plan, you don't wanna rewrite your policies before you really know.
I'd rather just manage the strategic plan there. Like, I'd rather get rid of all of this stuff, these things that I can never remember what they are clearly. That is far more interesting to manage. This is what we're gonna try to do with the district, and that's, you know, our,
Well, and one thing I've batted around in my head but haven't put down on this paper was, should we have a strategic planning policy that says, this is what a strategic plan is, this is what we want to have in it. And then that rolls out and says, that should help set the
and here
agenda.
it is, and we're gonna manage
Let's
this.
hear,
Well, yeah, and that sets the agenda for the board during the year, because it'll always
As
be
well as
changing.
for the superintendent.
let's hear, Dave has it.
So I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, is that, you know, a board should really be setting the strategic plan and influencing that, and then it's our job to really make sure that the policies are in alignment. And then in the board agenda, when it says, you know, policy update, we present a couple of policies in support of the strategic plan that are being revised. And that would be the job of administration that's functioning, focused on supporting that. And then the policy updates, you get your first read, your second.
I like that. So you basically do what we're talking about having to do, but you do it.
Well,
So you're
it makes
talking
more
about-
sense, because we can put it into language that makes sense for the schoolhouse,
Yeah.
right? And, you know, it keeps you folks really thinking about where we're going, and it helps you set the tone and the priorities for what the district's doing, and then it's our job to implement. them, right?
And so you're talking about board policies?
Or, well, I'm not
administrative?
gonna rewrite them totally without board.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
Right,
Yeah.
but, you know, if we're working on policy, you know, and then hopefully I'll have an administrative assistant like starting yesterday. He or she can help,
Right,
you know, that sort of thing, but policy is really important to the functioning of the school district, and sets the tone, and sets the expectation. And then we can point to it and say, you know, academics, continuous improvement, this is why we're doing IB, this is why we're doing late enlistment, this is why we're embedding them. You know, and we have these key programs like Ed or outdoor ed. And if we can bake those into the IB process as well, then they're not just these sort of siloed
Right.
runoffs.
yeah,
Right, they start making sense in terms of our entire academic effort and focus. So that, but it takes a while, but, you know, for
that's
Katie,
actually.
to be able to say, look, this is a high priority for us. And this is what, as a representative of the people, this is a high priority when I talk to the community members. This is what I'm bringing back and saying, we need to make this. And then you can structure a meaningful leadership retreat for the board and senior leadership annually, like we started out with. And then, we've been kind of in a reactive mode, because even though COVID's better this year, it's more complicated and nuanced and consuming even more time and energy than it used to. So, I'm not trying to make excuses, but there's just a lot going on right now. So, but I think that this makes a lot of sense, and I think it's open and it's transparent, and that, it will help Linda report out the financials in an open, transparent way. Post them on the website so people can find the things, that sort of thing.
No, I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, I mean, and that, comes out of the strategic plan. So should we, we talked about working with the strategic plan, and then the next one is to align the strategic plan with policy. I think if we just add a bullet point on that, then we can figure out how to do it later.
Yep.
But we will have either done it or not done it.
No, I think that's great. Yeah, that's great.
And then, but the other comment I had, or one of the other comments I had on academics, and to get back to Susan's point earlier about monitoring, I'd like to see something that makes sense with where we're going with IB pre-K through 12, and how to have that align with what we're monitoring. IB has all sorts of frameworks, right, on what you're supposed to teach and how you're supposed to, so do they not have something that will help us with, if we're going to be this kind of a school, and we're saying, this learner profile is really important? Well, that's what we should be reviewing, how we're doing on that path. I know we're not there yet, but how we're doing on that path, and making sure that whatever we're looking at to monitor the academic performance aligns with the outlook of IB overall. So I don't know what that is, that has to come back to us, but I would like us to reevaluate what we're looking at to make sure it's aligned
Well, that might
with
be,
strategic academic direction.
that might be hard to do this next year, because we're still kind of in the process of implementing IB, I would say. And so for our goals for this next year, I would like maybe some help from you guys about what is a, what can we use this year to monitor academic progress? And, I think we need that defined.
I have an answer, I'm finishing UIP now, and I just think that, the two big areas of nature concern are 2 grade levels aren't maybe state average, that's on fire. Those are two highly identified areas that we're working on. That'll be part of our whole umbrella and approach of academic improvement will be about curriculum alignment, specifically focused on some progress monitoring there. And we're trying to figure out the best way to do that, which is right now we've been primarily using STAR data. We want to get into some of the assessment tools that they're using with the curriculum pieces too. So I think that we'll have some better measures and some better ways of steering some of that academic progress in those areas. So I think that's one thing that could be an academic focus for this year, would be those 2 grade level areas. I think bringing together all of our marginalized population groups around IPs, minorities, bringing reduced lunch, and seeing income to parity. We took a look at disaggregated data, even though we didn't have in large enough to look at those groups, we didn't see the kind of performance we want to see in those groups. There's another area that we work. And finally, the other portion is that I think there's a local and community expectation that we exceed our like and match peers and some of those other. So I think those would be the. That's why I'm glad I live in UIP. Probably shouldn't reinvent the wheel if we're.
Right, well, so we have all these other things listed in the policies that we're supposed to monitor. What I don't want to do is set us up to monitoring stuff that we did in 1997 and no longer. So.
Matt's gonna help us update everything.
Yeah, well, but the point is, I'm not sure that this is, and I know it's a 1-year goal right here, But I think we should be thinking longer term to get to where we're going.
Sure.
And make sure that we're considering that, and every year we don't have a different evaluation system. I get that we're not there yet from the curriculum implementation and all that, but I think we should be thinking long goals.
So is there another bullet you would add to the academic?
Well-
Can you go back up, John?
We need a appropriate system for our academic philosophy. I mean, how we're changing everything. We need to make sure that we're monitoring what's relevant.
That's right.
But I mean,
It's a great point. I think maybe it's just an acknowledgement that you're moving and designing a model district-wide, and there's got to be some. There's got to be some.
Monitor
thoughtfulness.
academic.
And just, you guys keep thinking about it, keep talking about it, keep working on it with district leadership. Over it's obviously it's a multi-year thing, but I think you're really right on to make sure it's captured. But what gets captured here will get managed, and what gets managed is and you're absolutely right. It doesn't even have to be wordsmithed perfectly right now. It's just a really good add, which is what we should be focusing on. And shit, this is supposed to be, the double decade type of initiative. to
Yeah.
really transcend. So it should be up there.
yeah. So
And then again, we don't have to wordsmith it, right?
no, I think with a long-term focus, I just, let's do what we're doing and how we're trying to get there, not what we want to do by May.
I think that bullet works, we'll do that.
The long-term focus and integration for IB.
That's good.
Okay, great. There, at some point soon, you'll review the UIQ.
Yeah, the UIP is being reviewed this Friday by members of the DAC, and the middle of the presentation of the DAC.
Excellent.
Yeah, I
That's a
imagine
starting point.
They'll want to do that presentation with you.
Great.
So I'm guessing after that, yeah.
One more thing, I think we need to, in this, under operations, when we talk about the safe school, I think there's some specific work that the board needs to continue to do. I feel like this point is very, we got a little in the weeds last year with Pickett County Health, with CDPHE. I think we need to continue to be an advocate for the school with other public organizations to support the administration, because we're not gonna, we have to. I mean, we have to continue to do that. And I think that needs to be a priority of the board to talk to our county commissioners, to call the auditor if we need to, whatever we need to do. Because there are still some very big issues related to, especially related to COVID testing that we're getting close on, but it's not done. And they will continue to change.
Yep.
I'm having a chat tomorrow night with the commission, county commissioner.
Good. I think that was.
Good.
This level.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put this back out there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There was one more thing. The bullet point after the colon, or the comment after the colon, we did a much better job with that last year. So sort of the overall philosophy. So we have, last year under academics, we had a little snippet that was good.
Yeah, there, after.
Create a culture of high expectations, blah, 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 that stuff. I think that gives a guiding sort of principle around each goal that puts it in context that I think should be continued. They might need to be tweaked from last year, I think.
Okay, then so what I'll do is, I'll take a first crack.
Yeah.
Now that we've gotten the first round of input, and then I'll put it back out there, and then in 2 weeks we can review it again.
Perfect.
See where we're at.
Thanks.
Great. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Good discussion.
Thank you, Jonathan, especially for doing all that legwork.
So 6.2 policy update. I think we have no policy update. I think we.
We do not have a policy.
Great.
No formal policy update at this time.
But we will next time. I bet we will next time.
I'm calling.
Great. So
Trying
we
to
have.
figure it out, and hopefully we can have a policy.
So one thing we might want to consider related to that is if CASB actually does still happen. The whole board is going to be down there, whatever the new board is, that maybe that might be a great opportunity to work on that and spend some time offsite. I'm looking at Susan even though she's not.
I was happy to say.
In 2 weeks, we're gonna have policy and.
But just- I know, but I wasn't looking at you.
Okay, in 2 weeks, we're gonna do those two things, okay? So we added 6.3, discuss climate and culture.
The proposals.
Right, proposals.
Yeah, it wasn't climate culture, we
Right,
discussed
right,
proposals from
right.
HYI,
And Liz,
HYA,
Fox,
HYA,
Wilson, and Fox.
Wilson, Fox.
Okay. So, Susan, do you want, since you solicited them, do you want to?
Well, I think Dave did HYA and
Oh.
she did, so they should each take a little
Okay.
quick look at it.
HYA was a lot cheaper than Liz.
It was less expensive.
I haven't seen this, so I can't
First story, here, 10,000.
have to look at it. but
Yeah, I did
I'm
that.
supposed to offer one insight. The second, one's orange.
Well, they're two different paths to go down.
There are almost two different deliverables. One is more focused on what's the general feedback of the state of the union within the district in the context of climate culture. How do you feel? You know, coming in, you 15 or whatever. The other one is, hey, let's go to a 360-degree performance review on the superintendent. I see an apple and orange.
Yeah.
I realize they're somewhat the same food group, but it's an apple and orange.
Well, I think that the second proposal was a little more apple.
Which was it?
The second proposal, that the revised proposal that Liz came back with, was a little more focused, reviewish than.
You mean her, she has,
She came back with 15 people instead of.
yeah, she has, within her second proposal, by the way, she gave us the first proposal.
There were options within the second one.
There we go, that's what you're talking about. Options with the second one. You're saying the second option looks a little bit more like a performance review.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was an opportunity to have both of them be somewhat similar in scope and.
You know, given that I think we have more consensus, I'm trying to bring some level of, you know, forward progress here. I think we have board consensus, strong, positive, and I believe we have agreement from Dave that a 360-degree review by a professional outside agency, obviously whatever they're doing, is very good, great value and benefit for the district and the position and all of its climate culture, confidence, trust, way to go. And so I love the HYA, and we like them, we know them, we trust them, they have experience in that product. Way to go. Let's assign that up. Secondly, we have a climate culture initiative that we launched in early 2019. We set it up in late 2018. It went into 2019. We got some good feedback, and frankly, some really constructive, valuable feedback that I think it became some of the topic of the last board campaigns, you know, going into the November election a couple of years ago, which is actually, I think that's good. We had to continue talking about it. I'd love to come back and do it as an update. So I would propose or consider investing in both. If we want to modify and amend the particular climate and culture update to really kind of even further streamline, that's fine. But she wrote it, she's tailored it, she knows she needs to be quick. She knows it needs to be actionable, and she knows it can't be just two
Participants.
what?
Two participants.
And she had two
Yeah.
options. One was leadership more, and the other was more of the community.
Yep.
And I think,
Those are both easy to discuss, but I'm putting on the table that we consider investing in both. And I realize, I like the words that were said about 15, 20 minutes ago, investing in leadership, investing in district performance. You could argue we haven't really done much of that over the last 8 or 10 years, or even the last 5 or 4 years.
Well, so one question I have on that is, you know, I guess my first bias is I think the HYA thing is like a slam dunk when it comes to 360 review, given the history of the recruiting process, the amount of time they've already spent with our staff and the board, and I have implicit trust in them. I would throw in a caveat with that, which is I think we need to make sure that we have the next generation of HYA executives involved in that. Because I'm not sure, you know, where Max and where they are in terms of walking out the door. But we have, or Dave has added in some of those other Thrively, like some of the other interactive community engagement, teacher engagement, online review things. So my question is, do they know about that? Has it been put in the context of this, and how much? I mean, I think we need to investigate to see what that is involved. Like, I wouldn't want to just sign up the other ones. Yeah, because if we are doing a 360, the climate and culture was done prior with no 360 being done. So there's going to be overlap there. There's going to be a lot of information that comes out of that that's useful for climate and culture. In addition, all the online tools we're using. So the question is, what do we need in order to accomplish the same thing? It might not be in the same format, but do we need all of that?
Well, maybe what I would suggest is since we all are agreement on HYI, do that. Sure. Get that out of the way and then see if we still think that there's more value added for Wilson Fox too. And go from there.
Yeah.
I mean,
And figure out a way to add in all that other online stuff that's giving us lots of feedback.
the my voice that you're talking about.
The Thrively or?
So,
We're using my voice to address climate and culture issues in the schoolhouse.
Yeah.
And we rolled that out last week, 2 weeks ago. And then I had a follow-up meeting with my voice and where we are, and then they're going to talk with each principal about addressing climate culture issues so that can change the climate kids experience. Right? So what you really have are two different proposals addressing two different issues. You have a larger bucket, which Wilson is taking, and then the HYA is addressing the leadership issue.
Yeah.
And I see some value to this. I would write this a bit differently to get better information. And we could identify a broader range of leadership. Each school has a leadership team. You know, I mean, if you want, I could work with Liz Wilson on tailoring this so that you can get a more representative sampling than just talking to us. Sure. We'll tell you we like it. I mean, I'm joking, but you know, we could help her craft a more effective one. And while it's pricey, it's not terribly pricey, but there's definitely hope for my retirement. I want to know you guys in about 6 to 8 years.
Yeah.
But it might have some good information for the board, and you know, especially following on the work that she has done in the district prior.
Right.
I think she's about 80% of the way to a really helpful survey process.
So I would propose you communicate with her and tailor it to what you
Well,
would.
and
Yeah.
I'll get contact information
Yeah,
from
no
Susan. I'll reach out to her tomorrow. We'll set up a time to talk next week.
But in the meantime, do we want to vote, if we need to vote, to go forward with an HYA proposal?
We can have this as a discussion.
Yeah, we can move it to action. So why don't we move 6 point, make it
Yeah, just,
7.3? Okay, we'll move this to 7 point. We need a motion to move it.
yeah, I'd make a motion to move the HYA proposal of the 6.3 discussion item and move it into 7.3 in the action items.
And the Liz
for
Wilson.
action. What's
So
that?
Liz Wilson is more of a discovery still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're not gonna vote on that
Right, so it stays in 6.3, it's
Yeah.
gonna, it has to follow up.
Let us take another run at it with this.
Yeah, but
Okay. So there you go. Now-
With the HYA being happening,
Correct.
that info has to come in.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
There we go, so we got any action, we can probably vote on the
Okay.
action, probably together.
So that we first moved it, we did, yeah, okay.
Jonathan
I
has
have two questions. Request, did you have my voice come or send us the material on what their methodology is or what
Oh,
the-
absolutely. We have all that data as well as the research underpinnings behind my voice.
Yeah, and then I guess what the My Voice is looking to solve in terms of what's their leadership model, that they say that this is because if you're out surveying somebody, you're trying to drive to sort of some result, right? So what's that result that we're?
Sure, so that I can take a run at that, or I can have my voice even come in and present to you
That would be great.
as well, with the research underpinnings as well as the model, so that you can understand my voice more thoroughly.
Yeah.
It's,
And I don't
it's
know if
probably one of the best processes I've seen. And, you know, candidly, I have been to a lot of conferences and I haven't really recommended a whole lot coming out of them, but I like this one a lot.
Okay.
So, yeah,
that'd be great.
it's got some real potential. Yeah.
And
And it's
another
a
one,
different model, it's in where it's a ground up and it's giving teachers a voice in the culture.
Mhm.
And, you know, there's an operational theory to try to make things better or make things worse. There's no. They wouldn't say that, but Tom Murray would, this guy we saw this summer, he's a national leader. So it kind of dovetailed nicely.
Yeah.
And culture is becoming one of the #1 drivers in school improvement work across the nation. So I'm happy to try to schedule my voice into the next board meeting.
Great.
that would be great. I mean, I'd really love to see the link. If we say we have a high performing culture or / school, how does this process drive that? And what are the attributes that they consider that to be? I'm sure they'll be able to have that, but usually when I've seen these models, they're driving towards some kind of end result that they want. You know, like leaders who effectively communicate, we're open to listening, all those kinds of things.
Communication,
Yeah.
I don't remember the 10 drivers off the top of my head. But it's communication, it's, do they have autonomy? Do they have materials needed? You know, yeah, that sort of thing. It's about relationships. I'll send you the data.
And then the other question I have, have you seen Ann Wilson's recommendations?
Let's go.
This was, oh, yeah, okay.
I just said.
The one came out in 2000. This was from Park, yeah, you're
Evaluation from 2 years.
Her
Her survey.
Yeah,
climate
so-
culture
There's-
results.
Yes.
You've seen those and you saw the recommendations that came out of that exercise in 2019? Okay.
So, I think we did put in.
I think you did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a great man.
I've seen a lot since I took the job.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to, do we have any, it's G 7.1 GP annual, I don't think anybody's requested a change in a meeting time. No, G 7.2, we've looked at this a few times, and so we can.
Okay, but I do want to present.
Okay, go ahead.
The formatting?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I asked him for a date from a Word, and he sent it to me in Google Docs, and Google Docs basically tore the document apart. But anyway, I think it's fairly clear what it is. And there's just basically one thing that I wanted to show you guys the edits and why I thought they were important. And then I think when we get done,
But it's in our mail.
yeah, I can,
Or we look at the last piece, yeah.
yeah, I'll present it
Before
to
you-
everybody.
before you-
on the same page.
Can't wait to see what it's gonna look like.
Yeah. And then I started trying to fix it and then I realized, no, it's not.
Maybe we get better if you accepted that or comments or something.
We'll see what it did for some reason in Google Docs. If this was one thing, maybe I should do it here. Let's pull up the other one so we can bounce back and forth and see what it looks like. What it should look like. So, here's that sort of- this is what it should look like, right? All nice and neat. Colors and everything. This is what Google Docs is. So you can see here one had, this is what it is. This was our needs improvement. This is our conclusion. So what I did was I went back, because some of them were actually repeated. So they were just, I don't know if Eliza had, but she'd actually just like copy pasted the whole phrase in some. So on this first one, the roles and responsibility in relationship to student staff, this also includes board committee work. My recollection of the conversation is that we definitely we recognize that relationship. That we should give that direction to the superintendent, not staff. However, due to the committee structure, we need to ensure board and committee work has clear policies, roles, and responsibilities. And ensure BOE members know the committee's priorities.
Yeah, that's good. I'd say all board members feel.
Okay.
Because I think that's what you mean, right? Everybody
Yeah.
knows what's going on.
Yeah, I just, you're right. Okay. Okay, the second one was the students. Yeah, this one didn't change anything. This one did. Board understands that actions occur at the policy level. This was one that I think was the comment didn't really go with this. And I just put in here that BOE recognizes that policies needs to be updated to reflect the desired changes in the committee.
Yeah.
Four, the board gives direction and requires information only. We said we're not in compliance, but this is in conflict with current committee operations. Okay, come to meetings prepared. I just wordsmith this a little bit. Superintendent prior to the meetings if there are concerns to ensure that our meetings are effective and that there are no surprises.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, 6.
We also, again, encourage that we get information.
Oh, okay, good.
In enough time to adequately prepare.
Well, I think the board will give something.
Yeah. Last time it passed the vote.
Not this
Yeah.
one. I'll think of this one.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah, anything else to say the board?
good.
So then
Our
six,
close
each day.
be Friday.
Prior, I guess the 26th.
Yep. Okay, good. Yeah, that's gonna be.
So,
Six, board works in happens.
for instance, okay, so this one I put board needs to remember questions are for clarifications, content and understanding, and recognizes there's an opportunity to improve interactions with the staff. Overall, we need to better communicate what is expected prior to the presentation and agenda setting, as well as what is expected under each active item for the staff and BOE. I think this is what we talked about. A lot of times it's just like we get a presentation, we're not really sure what we're supposed to take out of it, what are the key messages. And then that can lead to sometimes just a lot of question asking. Why is this happening? What are we doing?
But I
here?
think we
And so-
have to set some of these expectations.
Yes.
Right.
Did we say that we
What is
need to
expected.
better do what is expected? Okay, yeah.
And at the end, I put the BOE wants to ensure the whole group, including community and staff, work together. This was actually somewhere else, and I thought that this was the
Yeah.
place for it.
Okay, yeah, good.
So communicates with the citizens. This is just words, I think, proactive communicating with our citizens and work to change there.
Yep.
Sufficient and appropriate. The board is so this said the board would like to use just a governance model instead of policy governance and coherent governance. I just put the board is evaluating working with Caschizzi and revision of policies and governance model.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
think-
right.
yeah, that's-
Okay.
Good.
Then down here at the bottom, these were just NA before, these B and SR. So I'm saying we're monitoring them today. And you can look at them each one if you want. I don't know if anybody had a chance before, but it's basically like the superintendent is our employee. So I don't know that
Well, so
warrants too much.
I can just tell you, the board, number one is board's main connection to the operational organization is the superintendent. The board will direct the organization, operational organization only through the superintendent functioning as the CEO. So,
So I just said the first three where there's pretty standard stuff and we've looked at those plenty of times and there's no change. In 4 and 5, so basically I said we're in compliance because we approved our own adjusted procedure at the beginning of the year. And basically I put this letter here at the bottom, which is we agreed to evaluate the superintendent on on several goals, set the guidelines outlined in these two policies that the BA, the Board of Education, felt were not adequate given the ongoing. And then I put the goals were, and that's it.
Sounds good, yeah.
And that way I think we can say this document is then done. Now we might have to approve it in the next meeting or, but those would be my suggested changes and the way to handle that last little.
So we don't need to take action on it tonight. Thanks for the revisions. We bring it up, bring it back to the next meeting and take action.
Good work. Thank you.
Okay.
That works. Slow coordinator.
Yeah, they're on fire. What else you got for us?
So we're not gonna vote on that then today. Okay, so we are voting now on 7.3, HYA action.
Thank you,
Maybe
motion to
we'll-
approve 7.3 HYA proposal for 360 evaluation of as presented.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
I make a motion to approve items 8.1, 8.2 personnel items. September 14th. Items.
For a second.
One, just one revision to that, 8.2, I'd just like to note was covered in Dave's presentation, the superintendent presentation.
Yes.
It's not actually
It's
in
not in
the document.
Good point, so it's a new show.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Vampires.
let's just approve. The draft meet the board meetings. So there, and then my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So that passes. Okay, future agenda items, I think we can, do we still need this GP2 board positions? I didn't,
Well, that'll have to happen after
After you have
elections.
me.
okay.
I would suggest,
And we can take off this BSR policy to review.
Okay, so Susie, just a point, we have to put we need to approve those personnel items at some point, even though they weren't listed, we approve every, we.
but I don't know, sometimes the timing is.
No, they're always listed at some point, so the next board meeting, we should just list the ones that were listed this time.
They're after the hire.
Yeah, no, it's after the hire, but we historically, I assume there's a reason.
Can we recognize them verbally and approve?
Yeah.
That's
I just,
Elise and Jonathan,
one
and John,
less pending.
they're not listed in personnel, but we want to approve.
prove what you put in your presentation about resignations and hires
Oh, okay.
from the last time, but they didn't get put in the agenda.
Okay, all right.
So-
I will address that with.
But we can make a
Well,
motion,
we can make a motion and get.
just approve them, John and Elise, John hire and Elise retire.
Yeah, so a motion to in 8.2, approve that the new athletic director, John Caschizzi, is that how you say that? It's hired, and we're sorry to say goodbye to Elise Fair after 20 years of service.
Yes. So moved.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Okay. One less agenda.
You think we did it last
Yeah, we might
meeting?
have done it.
Approve John last.
Whatever, we did it twice.
Okay.
He's doubly appreciated.
Yeah, okay.
Is that the director know that she can get started?
Wayne, would you debrief us, please?
Yes, debrief.
Oh, did you have
What's
another?
that, Susan?
I just had one
I'm sorry.
future,
Item.
agenda item, and I think, it might be a good idea to schedule some time in January or February, kind of an update on academic, monitoring. Just to get kind of a check-in about how things are going, maybe STAR tests or whatever it is that they.
So Theron mentioned that earlier. Did you have a scheduled time that you were already planning on doing that? I mean, I think that's
We
great.
did a mid-year check-in for academic progress when was that?
We could do that. Do you guys want to do that with the UIP presentation? They just finished the fall STAR assessment, Dibbles work, and I don't know where we are in the principals can do. What we did last year is we did beginning of the year, mid-year, and a final.
Yeah,
Is how we do.
yeah, I think that sounds like. a good
So
plan.
we'll schedule it after the second round of STAR testing.
Yeah.
So you can get a sense of how things should go.
Yeah, I think that'd be
Okay, so we'll check the calendar.
Great.
Testing.
So you want to make your
We just wanted to put a note on future agenda items that we'll want to do that at some point.
And then just to repeat what I said earlier in the appropriate point in the agenda, when we're at CASB, I think we should consider working on if that policy guide, if that makes it an easier, more effective way to do. We're there for a couple of days. We should consider that being a meeting down there and working on that stuff. I mean, I think last time we were there, we worked on the bond stuff because the bond guys were, that was easy. So maybe we ought to consider doing some policy work down there. So
Actually, 3 years ago, I did meet with this guy, Matt, and he was great. He's always there, and he's always helpful, happy to meet us.
And add that on my voice.
I got that. Always up to call. Okay. So, Blake, debrief. please.
Quick one, yeah. Remember, we do this in the context of our governing style with the policies too, but we also kind of look at how we perform in board meeting as compared to some of our own strategic initiatives, our own board policies, and then just our ongoing work with district leadership and how effective we are in terms of advancing our district's mission. This evening, I think it was a good example of a lot of healthy conversation around the action items, the discussion items, the updates, a lot of back and forth between leadership and the board in a very productive way. I think we have tried to role model good discourse and discussion around certain topics and ideas without going and attacking anyone in particular or personnel. So I think we're doing good work there, and I think the board's really in a great trajectory. And after they drop some dead load of occasion over here, it's gonna be better.
the countdown has begun.
It'd be too much being dropped.
I think the quality of the discussion with district leadership and the stuff that we accomplish and continue to want to accomplish is all in the interest of kiddos. So good work.
Awesome.
Good work by the president.
Thank you. So now we are going, can we have a motion to move into executive session? We need a recorder for this. And we need to turn off
Well, after you read the whole thing.
Yep, after I read the whole thing, I just want us to be prepared. So we'll call for a motion to move into executive session for discussions regarding superintendent's goals as authorized by CRS 24-6-4024F. And so now, can I have a motion?
I make that motion.
Second.
There we go.
We vote for that?
All in favor? Aye. So now, we turn off the video and the sound
Do we have to note the time or anything, or is that all
Yeah.
with that?
as we start it.
And when we end.
And when we. So it is now.
I just
Six-
motion check.
16 p.m.
6:04. My
Do we
computer
have to
says
come back to this, to this public meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ooh, I like how that moved.
So it is 7:24 and we are resuming our public school board meeting. We were discussing the superintendent's goals as authorized by CRS 24-6-4024F. Can we have a motion to adjourn this public meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
That's unanimous.
Everyone.